Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Don't judge a man by his clothes. You might miss out on a good commission. And the first story will tell you why. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Treat me like a loser? Okay. My friend is an older guy, very successful businessman, but he doesn't dress that way on the weekends. He decides to buy himself a Rolex and goes to this big fancy watch store in his standard ratty jeans. The salesman figures him for a bum and treats him with disdain throughout the entire conversation, like my friend is wasting his time. But my friend lets it roll off his back, gets the info he needs, decides on the watch he wants, and leaves. He goes directly to his bank, withdraws a big stack of cash, walks back into the store, and makes a beeline for his salesman. The guy's practically rolling his eyes at him until my friend pulls out the cash, points to his selection, and says, "I would like to buy that watch." From him. And my friend points to the salesman standing next to the jerk. Ratty jeans, about $20. New Rolex, about 15 grand. Look on the a-hole salesman's face as he watches his jumbo commission go bye-bye? Priceless. And our second story. Sorry, that's not my driveway. You've been very clear. A few years ago, my ex and I rented a one-bedroom house on a dead-end street in the downtown area of the city I grew up in. We had 3 cats, and I lived close enough to my job that I could walk to work every day. The city had and has a poor reputation, particularly with regards to heroin overdoses, but none of that affected us. The landlord who owned my home had for some reason actually built 2 homes on the same property. Mine, a small one-bedroom home, sat maybe 6 feet from the street, and my back neighbor's home, a 2-bedroom, was kitty-cornered behind mine. There was a long shared driveway on the left side of my house that ended at her front door. The number for the neighbor's house was 11.5, and mine was 13. From the beginning, we had issues with this neighbor, whom I'll hereby dub BN for B-Neighbor. She would frequently invite herself over to our house for dinner or drinks. She would have people coming and going loudly at all hours of the night and frequently had the police at her home to kick out various boyfriends. By the time we moved out of that house, her friends somehow caused an electrical fire in the house that had cost about $35,000 to repair. Keep in mind that this house was maybe 50 feet away from mine, and neither home had particularly thick walls. Mostly we ignored BN. We didn't spend time with her, we didn't answer the door when she knocked, and we just left her alone. The most we interacted was when I would give her misdelivered mail. We wanted nothing to do with her and the hurricane of chaos that was her life. Of course, BN didn't like this. She wanted to be in control of everything on the whole street. The driveway that led up to her front door was large enough to fit 4 cars, a fairly big deal in an area with mostly on-street parking, but BN insisted to us that when we first moved in, we were not allowed to park in the driveway. The driveway was only for her and her guests/children/boyfriend of the week. She said many times that she would not allow anyone to block her car in at any time. This driveway was directly on the side of my house. My desk was in our converted dining room and was right next to the driveway. Every morning there was a car parked directly next to these windows, and every morning that car started up, crazy loud because it was a real piece of crap car, at about 6 a.m., right around the time I was sitting down at my desk with coffee. Luckily, I'm a morning person. If I'd been asleep during this time, I would have been PO'd. I occasionally had family and friends come by and would warn them not to park in the driveway, but a few times they did. My sister was moving at one point and needed to store some things in my basement, but the only entrance was outside on the back of the house, so she pulled up into the driveway and started unloading boxes. BN flew out of her house and flipped out. But my sister has her own anger issues and handled the crazy situation all on her own. BN did this to 2 of my friends, my brother, and my mother on separate occasions. She started to flip out on my grandfather once until she saw my mother come up from the trunk of the car with his wheelchair. BN went back into her own house this time. My ex and I didn't want to deal with her. We had our own problems and certainly didn't want to get involved in hers. Sure, it means we couldn't use the side door of our house that led out onto this driveway unless we had 2 hours to get stuck talking to her, but we decided to just adapt. We had some lawn on the other side of our house that was brown and overgrown with poison ivy. We cleaned it out, filled it with gravel, and made it our new parking spot. Voila! Crisis averted. Then came winter, a particularly bad winter. We had feet of snow piled up. My ex had gone out and shoveled out our car and a path from our front door to the car. He was out there every hour, clearing off the path and the car and laying down rock salt. My job was waiting until the last possible second to close, so I wasn't sure if I would be heading to the office or not. My ex kindly made sure the car was available in case I needed it. BN was pissed. We could hear her in the driveway yelling at her boyfriend of the week to shovel. We could hear her saying all kind of bad crap about us. And we could hear when she broke her shovel, threw it in the yard, and stormed back into the house. Later that day, a plowing company came. 2 guys dug out the cars, let BN move them, and plowed their driveway. They even did their front steps. They were gone in less than an hour. Then the landlord showed up. The landlord never showed up at the property unless there was a big deal. My ex and I were in the kitchen at the time, which was also adjacent to the driveway, and could hear BN's loud conversation about how expensive the plowing company was and how much snow that was still in the driveway. And it was still snowing. The landlord knocked on our side door. I opened it with a big smile. "Hi, landlord. Hi, BN. How are you?" BN shoves papers at me. It's the invoice from the plowing company. "So I'm sure you noticed that we had to have the driveway professionally plowed. I talked to landlord and you have to pay half of this bill." Me: "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." BN: "It's expensive, and the landlord says that we can take part of it out of next month's rent." Me: "That's nice, but I'm not paying for that." BN: "You have to." Me: "Actually, I don't. I didn't know you were getting the plow guy, and I don't use the driveway." Landlord: "If the service is performed on the shared parts of the property, you should split the cost." BN: "See, you have to." My eyes narrow as I turn back to look at her. Me: "You've made it very clear that it's not my driveway. I'm not allowed to park in it. I had to make my own parking space. You can pay for your own driveway." BN was speechless. She'd really thought I would have just done what she wanted. Landlord: "You made your own parking space?" Me: "Yes, I've been told since I moved in that I'm not allowed to park in the driveway, and I'm not allowed to block her car at any time. She's yelled at everyone who's ever come here to visit me that's parked in the driveway, even if they're just stopping by for a few minutes." BN finally looks ready to re-enter the fight, but landlord speaks first. Landlord: "Thank you, OP. Enjoy the rest of your night." I smiled at them, closed my door, and locked it. I could hear BN trying to argue with the landlord, and could even hear her walk up and down my steps, wanting to knock on my door again, but landlord was firm. She had to pay the bill herself. And after that, she had to let me park in the driveway, too. You were super patient, and it paid off. And our last story: ended a lucrative business relationship because of an incompetent owner. This happened over the course of the last week. I hired a company to correct a big sinkage in my basement. They come in and drill holes and spray industrial foam under the flooring to level it. About a week ago, they sent a guy over to locate all the pipes and scope them for damage. Then about 3 days ago, the foam guys show up and get to work. About halfway through, they stop and call me into the basement. There's water running along my baseboards, and they're afraid they've hit a pipe. They call the owner of the scoping company to come over and rescope the pipes. He does and finds massive corrosion running all through it. I ask him why they didn't find that on the first scope, and he tells me they weren't looking for damage, they were just locating the pipe. This makes no sense to me, as you don't need to put a camera into a pipe to locate the pipe. Then he gives me the sales pitch. It's going to cost between $4,000 and $6,000 to fix it, but he can get a crew of cheap Mexicans out there who don't pull permits and can do it for much less. He says plumbers will rip you off. He used to be a plumber. I ask, "Oh, and you ripped people off?" I tell him, "No thanks on the labor. I'll call my basement company back and let them deal with it." During the course of the conversation with the scoping company, the owner tells me they do about 100 of these a week for their basement company. Scoping is $99, cleaning is $125, at least $10,000 a week, probably $500,000 a year they make from the foam guys. So here's the rub. When things start to go pear-shaped, I do what I used to do back in college when I used to have conversations with the police. Put my phone in my shirt pocket and start to record. No wiretapping laws in my state. That's right, I've got this guy soliciting illegal labor to me in full living digital color. The next day, the basement company sends out some licensed and bonded plumbers to fix my pipes for $0 because of the failure to locate the pipes. That's right, the scoping company marked the pipe 4 feet away from where it actually was. The scoping company not only didn't find any damage, they didn't even find the pipe. They did literally nothing. The basement plumbers do an excellent professional job. They bill the scoping company for their time. This morning, the foam guys came back to finish the job, and I tell them about the sleazeball that they've contracted. I play the audio for them of the guy trying to sell me on cheap Mexican illegal labor. Half the foam crew is Hispanic men. They are not pleased. The white crew chief tells me, "We are never doing business with that company ever again. I'm calling our owner right now." He also read me the contract that they had with the scoping company that explicitly says they are to look for damaged pipes, vindicating me once more. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.